I just watched Wakanda Forever, and I've got a lot of thoughts. There's a lot to get into with regards to this movie, and we're going to get into it all, and we're going full spoilers for the film. And I should also mention that tomorrow, after the day I release this video at 11 a.m., I'm going to be doing a live stream, and this will, of course, be on our live streaming channel, and I'll elaborate on a lot of the thoughts I have in this video, and I'll also open it up for you guys to talk about it in the chat, to hang out, do questions and answers, so that we can all explain how we feel about Wakanda Forever. But I think we should begin by talking about how the film handles the passing of Chadwick Boseman, whether or not it's respectful of him, whether or not it truly feels like it honors his legacy. And of course, I have to throw in the recast T'Challa movement and the fact that there was at least a portion of the fan base that wanted T'Challa to be recast and at a base level had issue with them using the passing of an actor to be the passing of a character as well. And I think the recast T'Challa movement doesn't get a fair shake out there. There are a lot of people that don't understand it, that feel like the route that Marvel Studios took by trying to honor his legacy and putting the passing of the actor sort of in as the passing of the character was the right thing to do. But I think the recast T'Challa movement has always had a point, and it is true that it's wild that you would not just recast this character, considering how important the character is for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But in the lead up to this film, in a lot of the different interviews that I've watched, in a lot of the different TV spots, and just from what I've heard from behind the scenes, it really feels like Ryan Coogler and everybody involved in the film was truly trying to carry on the legacy of Chadwick Boseman. They know that this movie is going to be absolutely massive, and they know that people will look back to this film for a long, long time to come. And they made a choice to have the tragedy of real life reflected in the film. That so fans in the future will always look back to this time and be able to remember and have reverence for Chadwick Boseman. I personally found myself letting go of my feelings of wanting T'Challa to be recast and being really open to whatever Ryan Coogler and company was going to present to me in this film. So the question is, how did it feel in its execution? And the truth is, I'm not really sure. See, this is the part of the movie that I keep coming back to, the thing that has me the most conflicted. I really don't know how to process this aspect of the film, and I think it's just going to take me some time, multiple viewings, to really balance out how I feel about this. This movie does not really deal with Chadwick Boseman's passing, and it doesn't really linger on the passing of Chadwick or the passing of T'Challa, in my opinion. And I know you might have seen the movie and say, what? That's crazy. Like, the whole movie's about his passing. And in a lot of ways, that's true. But what I mean is, the plot is being driven by T'Challa's absence. Absolutely. And of course, there's the opening scene, which is heart-wrenching, in which he dies and Shuri cannot save him, and she is in the lab trying to recreate the heart-shaped herb in order to save him, and she can. And that's the way they sort of play that scene. And yes, there are many different things, like the Black Panther being gone and the herb being gone, that push things around within the plot of the film. But the movie does not linger on the grief of his passing. There is the opening scene and the funeral, and then it transitions into a year later, and we start to get other elements of the plot driving forward. And there's even this sense that most of the characters, particularly Angela Bassett as the Queen, have moved on and are now addressing all of these other problems that are going on in the world and that are facing Wakanda. And the end of the movie absolutely addresses this trauma and addresses this pain head on, and there's a really nice closing of that with the end credit scene, which we'll talk more about later on. But frankly, the movie itself doesn't really involve itself in grieving for T'Challa. All of the characters are facing all sorts of other obstacles, and the plot just moves forward. And the thing that struck me was that this movie's very long, and I guess going into it, I had this interpretation that you'd spend a lot of time grieving the loss of T'Challa, dealing with that within the plot, and then there would be conflict, and then there would be situations going on for the main characters. But instead, it's almost like the movie is taking all of the time that it takes to really establish to the audience that it's its own movie, that it is dealing with things past T'Challa's death, that it is dealing with what Wakanda is having to face right now. And this is bittersweet. Like, I can feel the movie trying to communicate to me that we need to move on and that all of the characters need to move on, and the plot itself being about moving on is really just injecting that energy in, and it's like working on multiple levels, right? I get that, because of course Shuri has to move on and she's stuck in that grief, but she's not really grieving throughout the film at all. She doesn't grieve until, the end, and it just feels like, while I understand that choice, I also kind of feel a little bit robbed of actually grieving and processing and going through that with the characters. And for me personally, I'm not sure where I sit on this, because the movie wants to extend and grow what happens in the first movie, the idea of Wakanda, this cast of characters in this epic kingdom. And it's really carrying the torch of what the first Black Panther movie accomplishes, right? And it's like extending that, and it feels like it's at times more concerned with that and with expanding and growing and moving forward than it is on actually lingering on T'Challa's death and really speaking to the impact that he had. Like, there's not even a lot of like speeches. There's just a sort of silent accepting and quiet grieving, and then you're launched into this whole other plot. And so I don't know, because I can feel that the other side of this, like if they had really lingered on it, right? If they had really just dug in and had all of these really emotional scenes and had everybody grieving for some time and then launched into the regular movie, I could also see how that would be considered gratuitous. And I can consider people not liking that and feeling bad and it not being a enjoyable movie, even though it's a really emotional movie. So it's very possible that Marvel Studios made the correct choice here. And so, frankly, that aspect of it is still confusing to me. The jury's still out. I have to sit with this a little bit. I'm very curious as to how you guys feel about that aspect of the film. Let me know in the comment section, or come on by the live streaming channel tomorrow where we will talk about it together. But now let's talk about the other massive aspect of this movie, and that is just how it serves the MCU overall. And I know some of you guys get tired of hearing this because you've been on board with everything Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios have been doing in Phase 4. But the reality of the situation is this phase has been a bit lackluster, and we have seen some rare L's from Marvel Studios over the past couple of years. And a lot of fans are anticipating Wakanda Forever to sort of right the ship, to close out Phase 4 with a bang, to remind us as fans how absolutely epic and incredible the Marvel Cinematic Universe can be. So, how did this film serve the MCU? I will say, I don't think this movie is going to disappoint fans. I think it works on all the levels in all the places that it needs to. And I think a lot of Marvel fans will really cheer this movie and think it is an incredible MCU movie, top 10, top 5. Maybe some people even think it's their favorite MCU movie. And I do think it does restore a bit of confidence that the MCU can still create these absolutely epic experiences within the movie theater. The thing that I guess I want to say is I so badly wish that we could have seen the version of this movie with T'Challa still a part of it, because I think it would have been just as good, if not more compelling. Like, as tactful and as respectful as the handling of T'Challa's passing, or Chadwick passing, was in the movie, it still leaves a sort of weird vibe to the film that is appropriate for what it is, but also I think like prevents it from being as absolutely epic and incredibly fun as the movie could be. I don't know. Like, it's really good, and I think I have to see it again. I have to sit with it a little bit more. And I absolutely think that many Marvel fans will love the movie. I guess I'm just trying to figure out where I'm technically at with it. And I think the best way I can sort of express what I'm currently feeling is it certainly course corrects from the weaker sides of Phase 4 and brings us back to like a really nice MCU place, but it doesn't necessarily prove to me that we're all the way back and moving forward tonally and just as far as a crazy experience goes for the MCU. And lastly, I want to just talk about how the film is overall. Like, where does it stack up against the other MCU movies? Is it a masterpiece among all of cinema? And how does it balance these two really important and heavy aspects, right? The passing of Chadwick Boseman and the legacy of him as Black Panther, and delivering an awesome, fun MCU adventure and kind of righting the ship. How does it balance both of these crazy things? And I will say, I think it's really good. It's not a masterpiece, right? There are times where it lags. There are times where I got a little bored, but overall, it succeeds mostly by being absolutely epic. And I mean that not in the like, oh, dude, it's so epic sense. I mean it more in the sense of an old school epic with royalty, with multiple different characters, conflict between two power nations, power struggle, really long setups for the conflicts, big spaces in between the conflicts where courses of action are considered and, you know, political motivations and personal interests sort of collide. It's an epic in the truest sense, and I really like that aspect of the film. Like, it feels like the right type of movie to make about Wakanda after not only just the events of, you know, T'Challa going away, but the events of Thanos' attack and just the impact on the Earth. And while there's not quite as much of that sort of what are we doing post-blip kind of energy, it like all of the world feels a little too normal to me in the MCU right now, and I was hoping to, you know, looking for more of that like weirdness and that paranoia that would have been established, I think, after Thanos destroyed half the life on the planet. But overall, it does still feel really good as a film. It's working with all of its characters really well. Like, there are some incredible character moments. I think Winston Duke as M'Baku absolutely brought the noise, and I don't see enough people talking about his performance. It was incredible. I love the stuff with Namor. I love when Shuri goes to Telecon and they're just spending all that time under there. Like, it's a really interesting, again, epic in the sense of a king and a princess and her seeing this other nation and all sorts of stuff like that. His backstory was really cool, you know? So overall, as a movie, even though it's not perfect, I think it's much better than a lot of movies in Marvel's Phase 4. It holds a big heart, and there are moments that are really impactful and really sad, again, sort of particularly at the beginning and at the very end. But there are definitely parts of it that I felt were bloated. I think the movie's really clever, and there's really fun things going on, particularly from where Shuri's mom dies and then she becomes all consumed with vengeance, ends up recreating the heart-shaped herb and becoming Black Panther, and the sort of inner workings of that political situation in Wakanda are really interesting. Like, it really works for me. And I think Letitia Wright kills it in this movie, but particularly in the last third where she goes, you know, full on hate, crazy, anger, want to kill people mode. It was really effective, and I really liked it. The final battle with Namor was awesome, and I like how they sort of weakened Namor to kind of make the ending of it make sense, but it does kind of end up feeling a little predictable and a little bit bloated. So, of course, let me know your thoughts about everything we went over in this video. And a reminder, again, we will be live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, breaking down this movie, going in even more depth on all of the points I brought up here. And, of course, opening it up to you with questions and answers. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to this channel so you have a chance to win the dope nerdy thing we give away each month. This month, it's an awesome set of Marvel Legends figures. And if you want to watch more, why not check out this video I just did about Owen Wilson from The Loki Show having a major role in Deadpool 3. Sounds pretty crazy.